Welcome to the Lesbian Review podcast. I'm Sheena, and today I'm joined by the fantastic, wonderful, and very sexy Brooklyn.
Hi! Hey.
So, Brooklyn is our resident action reviewer, adventure reviewer. Give her stories with a lot happening and some awesome dialogue, and she is a happy camper. So, today I asked her to come on the show and talk about 3 amazing action novels that she highly recommends. Not only is she going to do that, but she actually categorized them quite delightfully as well. So, I'm very excited. Without further ado, all right, Brooklyn, hit it!
All right! I was very excited when Sheena asked me to do the action podcast because, of course, that's like literally my number one type of book. I feel like in an action books, there's no time for feelings. There's no back and forth, which is what I really like about action book. So what I first did is I Googled what Sheena thought the definition of action was, because she's given us definitions to categorize books, and she literally wrote guns, running, shootout, which is also guns, silly, and anything with physical activity to her is action. So I have to agree with her definition, but also I'd like to pose the philosophical question: can you have action without adventure?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
That's a good answer.
Adventure is more like horseback chases and sword fights and
horseback chases, as long as it's not running.
Treasure finding treasure and, pirates. That's adventure.
I would define, this is where we split slightly, is I would define adventure as anywhere, anytime in a book where a journey is taken, where you, like, maybe a character goes from, one city to another, or et cetera, et cetera. So I always find, like, unless they're standing in a room and someone, like, pulls out a gun and shoots somebody at the end, almost every action to me is an action adventure, because they're always traveling in my books, I think.
They definitely overlap the 2 categories, and it was a bit difficult to figure out how to categorize the 2 of them as separate entities, but they do exist separately. You do get adventures without the action, and you do get action without the adventure.
It took me a really long time, but I was like, oh yeah, like, Sheena, I got this. And I was like, I'm going to make this list real quick. But 2 hours and 6 days later, I was still writing, like, my list and trying to, like, go. I've been through the action and adventure categories, like, 8 times on the Lesbian Review, like. So, my lovelies, this is what I've come to for the 3 categories. We've got action for beginners. We've got romantic action because, surprise, surprise, not every ending is happy or has romance in it for action, which is something that I love. And then there's advanced action, which I categorize as a book with a lot of moving parts, or what I would say is rough, because a lot of times when you get an action book, there's a rape scene, unfortunately. But it's generally, like, it's, like, main to the story. Like, it's necessary. So, for my first...
Not just rape, but, like, some kind of violence towards women.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, violent, like, I would say, like, women getting put down or, like, called nasty stuff and things like that. So first category is action for beginners. And also, I would like to say I debated a long time with trying to convince Sheena to let me do my top 3 action authors, which I think that could have been cool. So I'm going to try to name drop a couple of authors and also say they're my action authors as well. That's how I also chose these books. Okay, so for beginner action, you've got... I also call this my introduction to lesbians books, because I know that I can grab anybody that I want to like lesfic and give them this book and they will like it. And it's called Keepers of the Cave by Gerri Hill. And it's an action kind of paranormal romance. And it gives you, like, in the beginning, it gives you, like, it grabs you with some sex, some, like, sexy stuff. And then it keeps you with the mystery. And then it entertains you with, like, once they get together, the mystery peaks and everything explodes and you just really enjoy yourself. Sheena, do you want to give the synopsis about what the book's about, or can you remember?
I don't even have it pulled up anyway.
I could give you, like, a general synopsis. She's like, I'm on the spot.
I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to introduce Brooklyn and she's going to do everything.
Surprise! I wrote in questions, like I told you, 2 days and 6 days later, like, I've got questions for you, I've got categories for you, like, all the shebang.
It's a fantastic book, though. I do recommend it. It actually made my top 10 books of all time kind of list because it's just so good. Gerri Hill is a master at building a really interesting plot line with captivating characters and then a really cool dynamic between the characters as well. So she's got all these like things going on, but it's really interesting. It is supernatural, though, so it isn't for everybody. But having said that, I mean, I struggle to think of people who wouldn't enjoy this book.
That's what I'm saying. And if you don't like super paranormal, I know this is only a top 3. Gerri Hill is one of my favorite authors. If you like action, you can find her action books. I would say check out Weeping Walls, which is another slightly paranormal book, but it's more of a cop mystery. And it's another book that Gerri Hill has done. There's a sequel to it, which is also really nice. Unfortunately, there's not a third book to that one.
So Keepers of the Cave is book 1. And Weeping Wolves is book 2. So it's the follow on to your first choice. And it's also a really good story. That's more of a kind of a ghost story. But you're right, it is much more of a mystery cop sort of book. Mm-hmm. And I like that she develops the relationship between the two main characters nicely. The dog decided to join in on the action today.
So there you go. That's my beginner's choice. Any Gerri Hill, Paradox Valley, another name drop. If you want to read that as a great action book. So Gerri Hill, any Gerri Hill action books. There's I'll give you my to be read for that section too. I don't know if Sheena knows this, but I have picked out also books that I would like to read in each category, and that's Devil's Rock, by Gerri Hill, I believe. Yes, I saw it, and I cannot wait to read that one.
I love that book. That's an amazing book.
I said, can you give us a synopsis on it?
I actually just the other day was talking about this book on a podcast, on the Top Audiobooks podcast, because it was just such a fantastic book. But you realize you're making me do a list here, Brooklyn.
Sorry.
So Agent Cameron Ross, I think it is, this is entirely off the top of my head, comes into town to use a supercomputer that she's got in her big traveling camper van thing to see if she can find where the body dumps for a serial killer will happen. And the local town cop helps her with this. And there's chemistry between the two of them. There's amazing action. The serial killer is a fun bad guy to watch happen. And it's just generally a really great cop book. But I love Gerri Hill's cop books. Love them.
Gerri Hill for the win. All right. Love it. Covered section 1 completely. Now we're moving on to one of my favorite sections because I was able to list my favorite author. And also I'm going to name drop another one of her titles that's coming out soon. And this section is romantic action. And I'm going with Lise Matag's 5 Moon Risings on that book. Or with my pick. I picked this book and I picked Lise Matag because all of her books have like a nice action romance flow in it, and it's like all equally paced. And on 5 Moons Rising I really enjoyed because I liked Ruri. It's another supernatural choice. I'm sorry guys, you're probably gonna realize like I pick a lot of supernatural books, a lot of fantasy books, because I think action for me is like really best displayed in a fantastical world, like where a lot of other things are possible, not just cops and laws and stuff like that. So 5 Moons Rising, that's the book I picked. You can check out Depths of Blue, which is also another one of her books. It's a really good book. My favorite is Torin. If you meet her, tell her I said hey, and tell her I miss her. And also what I really, really, really want to encourage everybody doing, if you want to see a super cute romance action book, easy to read, check out Demon in the Machine. Ask Lise when it's coming out. It's coming out real soon, and it's a really good book.
It's very unfair that you got to pay to read this book. Unfair.
I know. And it's really good, and the cover is going to be really good. I'm a huge cover person, so I want everybody to know as well. Like, I pick a lot of my books and my to-be-read books based off the covers, and then I'll go and read the review.
I agree with you. I think covers are super important. When I see a cover that just doesn't do a book justice, I feel really sad for that book. Okay, but you have to tell us what Five Moons Rising is about.
Five Moons Rising. You're basically in an urban fantasy kind of situation, and you join Mary Alice, and she works for like a government agency. Anyway, she takes out like fantastical creatures that are attacking people. Mary Alice, the character. And she has a sister she's really close with, and they have a mother, but it's kind of a broken family, so the relationship is extremely important between the three of them. Her sister gets attacked, and Mary Alice doesn't know what to do. She's got a certain period she knows before the full moon, before her sister fully transmutates into a werewolf, and she might die, she might not, and she needs help. So Mary Alice goes out, and she captures herself a werewolf. Enter in Rory. Super cute, super gorgeous werewolf. Like, Lise Matag does this like wonderful job of writing super fun characters, and Rory is one of them. And I'm sure she's like a favorite amongst the reviewers who read this book. But she's captured Rory, and the deal is you save my sister, I save you, I let you go. And the book moves on from there. And the whole book is about basically trying to save her sister.
Rory has lost her pack. Her pack was attacked, and so she's a lone wolf at the moment, which is really dangerous. She was the beta wolf in the pack, which means she was like the second in charge, and it's a really dangerous situation for her. So when this government chick captures her, she has all these conflicting feelings, because on the one hand she really doesn't like being captured, but on the other hand she kind of feels a little bit safer just being with somebody else. And there are some crazy emotional stuff that goes on. McTagg does a beautiful job with the characterization. Both of the main characters in this book are Butch Woman, which is rare and beautiful. I thoroughly enjoy this book. I think it's fantastic, and the romance element is hot and gorgeous.
Also, Depths of Blue, hot and gorgeous romance.
Mm-hmm. But she writes chemistry between women like she's a master.
Yes, there's one thing to be like, well, this is a great romance, but it's another to feel like you're in the relationship, which I think she manages to capture. I always feel like I'm dating. Like, I'm like, hey, tell Torrin I said hi. Like, I'm in that relation. There's one thing to say how cute, but there's another thing to be a part of it. Like, you know. So I think she does a really good job of capturing that. Okay, my final category, which I would have had trouble picking if it weren't for Sheena forcing this book upon me. It's advanced action, and it's called The Magistrate by Kiera Michelle Telford.
It's a dystopian fantasy set in England after there was like a major bombing. So what happened was they just took away everybody's rights. And so you sit in this world where you're not allowed to be gay. They'll literally just kill you for it, right? And the law is carried out by these people called magistrates. And the main character is Carmen Wild, which is just the best name ever. And Carmen is a magistrate. And one day she discovers a dead body of a hooker who has a familiar-looking tattoo on her wrist. And this leads her down the path of having to confront her past. She has to talk to Lena, who's the madam that she knew from younger years. And let's just say chemistry happens, sparks fly, and the story is intense.
It is. And there's another book that you really like. It's got like a green and blue cover. I can't remember what the name is, but it's on my to-be-read list. But this is my first Kiera book, and her writing is unique, as in she goes places like a lot of authors don't go. Like, her book, you know, when you first read it might seem like rough, but after reading it, then I look at all these other books and I love them, but they seem vanilla. So this is a huge advanced action book because it does have rough language, guns. They are shooting chickens. I believe there's some running. You know, and the love in it, there's a lot of love in it, but the love in it is very, like, graphic, very sexual. There, like I said, the rape scene is a little graphic, very sexual, but the way she did it and the way the character carried it helped me to be okay with it. So you can skip it, but it happens in the book, but it's worth it.
There's also a very graphic age gap romance going on.
Oh, yeah. But she makes it, I don't know this, but she makes this age gap so hot.
Telford is a master at taking things that I would not read, things that I would just go like no, and actually kind of sucking me into the space and making the world so gorgeous and so tantalizing that I just can't put the book down.
Tantalizing is a great word. It is an amazing word. Like, the first page I read, I was like, But then she was like, I didn't know, like, she was fishing. The hook was already in my mouth, and she was just reeling me in really slowly. And I was like, oh. Yeah, so that is going to be the end for my picks for advanced action. But if I were to make another book recommendation for advanced action, I would just go ahead and throw in Sharpshooter in there. And I say that one is advanced because it's 600 pages. And you have to be a patient reader, but if you are, this book will reward you.
So the review team have particular favorite books and particular favorite authors. So Tara will mention Anne McMahon in every podcast you ever talk to Tara about. And Brooklyn will mention Sharpshooter in every podcast you ever talk to Brooklyn about.
If I can, I will.
If I talk to Brooklyn about the best book, cover, Brooklyn will bring up Sharpshooter just because, she, by the way, there's this amazing book, Sharpshooter.
If you want to talk about simple, effective covers, let me bring up Sharpshooter real quick. Let's take a look at Sharpshooter. You're like, pick your favorite romance. I'm like, well, there's this book called Sharpshooter. Adventure, action. I probably could categorize it in everything except for sci-fi. Unless I was pretending to read it in 1990, then it could be considered sci-fi with the technology they're using. Come at me. I got this. I just wouldn't be able to do fantasy.
Sharpshooter is fantastic. It's a really good book, and I highly recommend it. It's made a couple of my top 10 lists. It's really an excellent book as well. So I like your picks. I think you have chosen some excellent books. Well done. And I highly recommend all of them. The links will appear in the show notes to go and buy these books. If you buy using our show notes, we get a small little commission off of it. And we'll have full synopsis as well in case you need a little bit more information. Thank you for joining me today, Brooklyn. It was delightful as always to chat to you.
No, it was always delightful to make you Skype with me. I make her Skype. Like, we're not just chatting. I make her, like, video me.
It's true. And Brooklyn is trying to persuade me to do video podcasts.
We should put up a poll.
No, we are not we are not doing video podcasts. You've been listening to the Lesbian Review podcast. I'm Sheena, and I've been joined today by fellow reviewer Brooklyn, who's awesome, and you should totally read all her reviews. She's also one of the pickiest reviewers on the team, so if she has categorized the book as her favorite, she really likes it. That's all for this week. Don't forget to come and join us on the Facebook group, the Lesbian Talk Show chat group, and come and visit our website, thelesbianreview.com. There's a link to a Patreon account if you want to be a super awesome supporter and become a patron. You will get exclusive behind the scenes podcasts. Bye!
Bye!